Alrighty, what is going on YouTube? Bruised here again. I'm less sleep deprived now, and I ultimately I've taken a few days now to really kind of think about Path of Exile 2 in a larger setting, and I have now played through the game a lot more, as you can see here over my Steam. I have 65 hours put into the game so far. I have this mercenary here who's only level, what, 71? Yeah, I'm only 71 on this guy, but I've been kind of going through maps, been cruising a good bit. And I've made a couple other characters. I've made a warrior that is like at the end of Act 2. I've made a sorceress that's also, I think, in like Act 2 towards the end. So I've made a couple characters. I've done some leveling. I've done some kind of just like really kind of thought about it and kind of put the kind of more time that I've put into the game, the more I wanted to just kind of put this video together and throw it in of things that I think we have some good things, we have some bad things, and I think we have some things that need some real adjustment. And of course, I'm going to be very kind of lazy with this. I apologize, but I both don't have the time for nor the skills to edit a video like this and actually like flash everything up on the screen. So we're going to do this the old-fashioned way of I have a notepad here, and I'm just kind of going to highlight some things as we go through. Formative. This is not a be-all, end-all list. This is kind of just things that I could immediately think of. I'm sure there might be a few other things. Maybe if I think of something else as we're going through this whole list, I will have something. And if you're somebody who just wants to pause the video and just look at this list and say, I don't need any explanation, good, thank you. I'm good, thank you, then there you go, there's the list. But I will be going through that. So with that, I kind of wanted to start with the good. And I will also, I'm going to preface everything that I'm about to say. Everything both on the good side, bad side, the need adjustment side. I'm going to preface everything with this game is still very new. This game is still absolutely in early access. We, the players, are still absolutely testing and kind of getting, both gathering and providing GGG with feedback for this game. The game is way different from Path of Exile 1. I will be doing a lot of comparisons to Path of Exile 1 because it's still Path of Exile 2, obviously. So I will still be making comparisons there, but it is a very different game. It's much more difficult. There are a ton of different systems that have been changed. But ultimately, we're still super early on in early access, so I don't want this to come off as like, oh, this game is terrible. I will still ultimately say, still right here at the beginning, I love this game. I have been having a ton of fun playing. Like you said, I mean, the game only came out a couple days ago, and I've already put 65 hours into it, and I'm planning to really continue to keep going. I will, of course, bounce back and forth between PoE 1 and PoE 2. I've been having too much fun with it to put it down, honestly, and I'm looking forward to continuing it. But with that, I really wanted to kind of go over some things that I think good, bad, and we could use some adjustment on some things. So with that, we will go with we'll go right into it. So first of all, graphics. Like that's kind of an obvious one. The graphics in this game, as you can see, though, I mean, it's beautiful. Like the game looks great. You zoom in, you look at stuff. Like there's so much just so much beauty into the game. There's so many good just like textures, so many good effects, like everything looks good, skills look beautiful, like everything is like awesome as far as everything goes. Like so much was put into it. I seriously love as far as this game looks. It's a very easy one. I know a lot of people have been talking about it, so I'm kind of just going to move straight on from that. Combat feel. Overall, though, attacks and spells, they feel really, really meaty. Things feel like they have a punch. They have a good impact to them. Let me see if I can go find just like some monsters really quick. Yeah, there we go. So, I mean, like, yeah, just set it up and then bam. Oh, I've seen that unique. So, like, yeah, as you can see, though, like, it just feels good. Like, it feels cool to just be setting up. I've seen this one. It feels really cool to just set up and let loose with all of your skills and everything. Builds themselves are overall, once you get something going and once you feel like you're kind of cruising with a build, it feels really good. And I do genuinely love how the skills feel so far. I think some of them do need some tuning in one way or the other, and I know that they're trying to do that. And I know as well that the community has been very, very upset anytime they nerf or tweak anything. But again, you have to remember this is EA, and they don't want things to scale out of control, because if they fully release the game and there's something that's just wildly overpowered and is just completely destroying everything, then and then they nerf it, people get even more upset. They're trying to catch this stuff early, and I understand it. It can be annoying, you know, if you've built this whole character around this build and then they nerf it. Like, it can feel annoying, but on the other hand, the problem is that if they don't do it now, those skills all become they feel like they become mandatory. They feel like you have to build this one particular way if you're playing this one class or this one skill set. They will always, it'll just end up feeling like you have to use that skill. It's the be all end all skill and that's it. So I understand it on both sides. I get it, but I'm just try to keep an open mind as far as that kind of thing goes. Also, I want to pick these up. And then let's see. So what do we have? Gear feels exciting to find. It does. I so far have been loving I mean, even just white items on the ground, they all kind of have a purpose because you have to actually, for the most part, kind of craft your items. Like this belt I have right here. This is a really, really good belt, although I wish I had life on it instead of mana. Regardless, very, very good belt that I have here, outside of like the prefixes. But literally all that happened when I got it is it was just a belt that had cold resistance. It had that 32 cold resistance. And then I just put an Orb of Augmentation on it, and I think it hit the armor, and I regaled it. And then it just kept hitting resistances, and I was like, yo! So it's just items both on the ground, and both just, like, in general that you craft can feel just so much more interesting. There's, like, more stats to it. There's more just, like, to think about with it overall than, you know, 95% of the things, like, even this amulet, too. This amulet I crafted as well also feels, like, outstanding. Just, like, craft things like this and them actually be completely meaningful and do a lot of good things for your character. So in that regard, things have actually been feeling really, really good. I actually love how items feel. I love how itemization feels. Like, it can feel like you have a character and you're like, man, this character's just not doing any damage. I'm just not doing anything. That's how I felt with this mercenary for a while, right? I think it was like the end of Act 1, Act 2. I was killing things so slowly. Like the fight with Count Geonor at the end of Act 1. Oh my god, I was like slogging through that fight. But I found a couple items, and immediately after I found those items and I got like a couple upgrades, made a couple improvements on like my tree and everything, as soon as that happened, I have just been cruising through the rest of the game and just destroying everything. And it was great. It's such a good feeling. So in that regard, like, it does feel like you're always kind of just like one item away, one upgrade away from just being able to like really shove your character into the realm of greatness, which is something that I really appreciate. Because Path of Exile 1, like, that's not how it works. You know, you need you basically, everything is revolved more around your skill tree, I would say, and like maybe a unique or two that very specifically fit to what your build's doing. But in this game, it feels a lot more like gear-centric. It's much more exciting to find pieces on the ground to be able to craft with. And they did just boost the amount of crafting currencies that we see, which is also nice because I like crafting, I like burning currencies. So the more of it that they give to us to be able to do with, the better, the happier that I am. Oh, I didn't include this as well. WASD movement in this game. Reloading. Also a good thing. It feels fantastic. I love WASD. I literally haven't even used mouse. I haven't done mouse clicking on literally any character, my warrior, my sork, whatever. I have only been using WASD, and it feels phenomenal. I love it so much. I was really worried that it was going to feel kind of awkward, but no, it feels great, and I am super excited to continue to have this kind of feature available. I do honestly want this feature to come to Path 1, and I kind of hope it does. It'd be a little bit different, but yeah. With that though, we'll move on. So mechanically, I like stun. I'm actually gonna go, so this is both. This is both under the good and the bad here, and I'm kind of gonna go over both right here. And I will just I'll talk about why for both of these. So I'll go over both. Stun as it is right now. I love stun. Stun is a very, very useful mechanic. I wasn't sure how it was going to feel, but stun feels great with a caveat. So stun is such a good mechanic, and I'll come and try to find some monsters over here. Let's take a look, because I have flashbang grenades or flash grenades here that are really good at building up stun. So bam, look at that. They're stunned, they don't do anything for like a second, they reel back, and it gives you a chance to actually like attack them. The problem that I have with stun, however, is, I don't know if you saw it, here I'll try to get it on this monkey here, is how far they reel back, how far they get knocked back when you stun something. They jumped so far, they were right next to me, and they literally launched all the way down here. They were standing here and got launched all the way down there. That to me is not, that's the worst part of stun to me. I do not like that part of stun. I understand that it's supposed to be they got knocked back, that they got stunned from it, but it does not feel good. The amount of times that I have stunned something after I had like some grenades set up like in front of me here, I stun something and they bounce out of where my grenades are, and then I effectively do no damage, and I'm instead punished for it, is a little bit too high. And it feels the same with my warrior. My warrior is the same way in the sense of I stun things sometimes, and they get knocked so far back that by the time that I move up to engage in melee range again, because they've bounced so far back, by the time I move up to engage with them again, they've usually recovered from the stun, and they go right back into hitting me. And so it feels like a mechanic that overall doesn't do anything sometimes. Again, from a mechanical standpoint of what stun does and how stun build-up works and everything, I love it. I think it's a really good mechanic, and like especially in boss fights. In boss fights, it's not as noticeable. Usually, if a boss gets stunned, they just kind of go "ooh" and fall over right in front of you, and that's fine. But in moment-to-moment combat, when you're out and about in a map, that's where I think stun starts to really kind of fall off and struggle a little bit. And I do hope that they plan to adjust the amount of knockback and the amount of just like stun that happens from stun. So that is something I'm gonna. That's why I wanted to go over both of it here. Stun feels good, but also doesn't feel good all at the same time. It's great, and I would like to see more improvement here. Yeah, so that's what I'm hoping for. But overall, I still really like it. Runes, and this is actually something that is down here as well. Yes, an adjustment. So I'll talk about both of these here as well while I'm speaking about runes. So runes overall, again, I like runes. I think they're cool. They add kind of another layer of investment into your gear. They add another layer of being able to kind of add another something. Maybe your gear is like really good, but it's just missing that one thing to really kind of push it. And so that's really nice. I mean, like, just being able to put a couple sockets on this and just add more fire damage here. Being able to go, oh, you know what? My resistances in fire and lightning even could use some more on this. Throw in a desert rune and a storm rune, you know, after you've done that. Throw another, you know, desert rune up here, desert rune here, desert rune here. My fire res was really bad. So you just throw in, just being able to have all of these just like runes to throw in to really support your gear and kind of push your character into another level, I actually really like, and I think is a great thing. I've thoroughly been enjoying runes from that perspective. I'm glad that they are in the game. I love them as far as like gearing goes and everything. They do add a whole other layer, and it feels nice. And runes aren't rare, I will say. Like, I find runes pretty much all the time, so in that regard as well, that's another good thing, is they aren't like, it's not like a currency that's so rare that I'm never going to find it, and I have to be super, super careful about the investment into them. I find them often enough to where I don't feel bad if I sock it into a piece of gear and then replace the gear like a couple maps later. I'm usually just like, okay, that's fine. I have a bunch of these sitting around, so I'll just use one. So runes overall really good. The only thing that I have as a complaint about them is that they should do something for spell weapons, and I think this could just be for spell weapons. It could literally just be that it adds flat of X damage type to that, or there are other runes that give. Let's go take a look really quick, because I actually forgot what all of the runes do. But as you can see, all of them apply to either martial weapons or armor. Even soul cores are only martial weapons or armor, which martial weapons is anything that actually deals hit damage instead of a spell. So no wands, no staves. None of those will get. None of those will be able to use runes. In fact, I don't even think you can put a socket on them, and that's really a bummer. And I hope that that's something that's just like not a thing in early access. That's why I kind of just put it into needs adjustment here. I hope this is something that's coming in the future and that they just don't have in early access. But like, these should do something. Even if it's like for spell weapons, it adds, 1 to 20 lightning damage to spells or something. Like, it should just be like adds flat damage to spells maybe, or just flat increases of like a certain elemental damage here for spells on into spell weapons, into wands, all that kind of stuff. And you could do things like, just leeches fizz damages life, but still on a spell. Like, it's anything like that. There are plenty of options that they could still do. They could literally still take these same bonuses and move them onto spell weapons. So I do hope to see that adjustment. I do hope that they decide to actually add, in some more utility for spell weapons, because that's sort of the one disappointing thing right now, as far as runes go anyway, is that you will not get access to those on spellcaster weapons, and they're so cool. Like I said, runes are fun. But with that though, we'll bounce on. So what do we have? Oh, accuracy. Accuracy does. It feels really easy to cap, especially in the early game. Like I have almost no investment into accuracy pretty much anywhere. I might have some accuracy here and there. But the only other investment to accuracy that I have is strictly from... Oh, there's some accuracy there. The only other investment to accuracy I have is strictly through dexterity. And... Should be able to see it here. Where is it? Do-do-do. Sorry, I always forget where it is. Ah, there we go. Accuracy rating. Estimated main hand chance to hit within 2 meters. Yeah. So it's very, very, it's very easy to cap. Like I said, I don't have anything else. Actually, I think the only thing I have, I might have... Okay, I have precision as well. I have precision as well into Defiant. Let's see if I take this out. What is my accuracy go down to? 93. Okay. So I'm missing some accuracy. But like I said, I don't have any investment anywhere. Other than literally just precision here. And I don't have any on my gear. So if I were to get some accuracy on my gear as well, I probably literally wouldn't even need this. So that is something that I really value, because accuracy in Path of Exile 1 is a nightmare to put together. Like you need so much just accuracy in PoE 1. It's so annoying to like get your gear figured out from a like melee perspective or even a range perspective as far as accuracy goes. Like you have to invest so much into accuracy in PoE 1, and I'm glad that there is less of that. I'm still not crazy about accuracy itself, but I understand them wanting to continue to use it. I understand it like what it's there for, so I'm fine with it overall. I think they did a good job of managing that, and they've made it better overall. Yeah, mana and mana regen, that's the other thing, is that they feel both really good to invest in, and it feels like it's very well built in and baked in. Like mana overall feels better than what it used to. In Path 1, if you don't have, like basically in Path 1, you are strictly looking for ways to reduce the cost of your skills to eventually get down to have them cost 0. But in this though, like even at base, you regen mana pretty quickly, and then if you invest into mana regen rate even a little bit, even just on like your amulet or some of your items or something having any kind of mana regen, like you can see these skills cost like 40 mana, and look at that, my mana is like already regen. In PoE 1, that would not fly right there. That right there, I would be at half mana and I would maybe be regenning like 1 mana a second, and it would be so ridiculously slow. Like in PoE 1, your options are literally completely reduce the cost of your skills, get some kind of mana leech, or just invest so heavily into mana regen that you're able to do that. But it's like, it's a heavy investment that you have to do in PoE 1. So that's something that I've been thoroughly a fan of in this, is just the ability to spec very little into mana, don't have to think nearly as much about it. And then even if you do end up needing to use your mana flask, you still have it there as a backup. I know that there are like spellcasters and stuff that do still run into mana issues. I know like Witch and stuff can run into a bit more mana issues, so you need to still kind of build mana regen here and there. But it feels like an overall more worthy investment. It feels easier to kind of invest into it rather than what it once was. So I will say mana overall in this game still feels a lot better, which is something that I am glad about, because you know, like I'm saying in PoE 1, you know, previously, if you don't have any of that, you're just, and then, like, say you run out of mana flask, you're just in a situation where it's like, you are literally screwed, you're almost never going to be able to use your skill. In this, even if I'm out of mana flask, the fight's still going, and I'm low on mana, I can just wait a few seconds, kind of just focus on dodging for a little bit, maybe hit him with some of my just, like, lesser stuff to set up gas grenades, and then just, you know, just kind of roll around, do that, while my mana regen's on the side. And then I'll be able to dump another full combo in, and so that feels overall a lot better. Resistances, yes, resistances do feel important, because even while you're leveling, if there was a time with my warrior, I was fighting the big Titan boss, and I didn't realize that the guys that he calls in, I didn't realize that they explode and deal cold damage to you. I had not thought about that literally at all. And then I was wondering, I was like, why am I getting one shot all of a sudden? And I looked at my cold res and realized I had 0 cold res, and those guys were exploding and dealing cold res. And I went, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So if I had any kind of resistances, it actually would have felt mostly fine to just kind of tank through them as well. But since I didn't, you know, then I just learned, you know, dodge roll through them, set them off, and then go back to fighting the boss. So from that regard, like I said, it doesn't feel like you need, like, I'm not capped right now, and my chaos res is 0. But I'm not capped on any of my on everything. I mean, fire and cold are almost capped. Well, cold is capped, fire is almost capped, lightning is almost capped. And that's a very recent development. Otherwise, I was running around and I'm still, for the most part, kind of able to survive pretty well, even when I was running around with like 30, 40 resistances in general anyway. So it just, resistances overall have so far felt like something that you can invest a little bit less into. You still should try to get them capped because they do feel really good and they feel very necessary still, but it doesn't feel as urgent to cap them as it does in Path 1. In Path 1, if you make it to maps and you don't have like capped resistances when you get to maps, you're screwed. You are going to get absolutely cooked by everything in the maps. You're barely going to be able to make it anywhere. You're going to be so squishy. But that doesn't feel like the case here so far, and that's been another thing that I'm really grateful for. The other thing I'm really grateful for on the topic of resistances is that your chaos resistance does not get lessened as you go through the acts. Your fire, lightning, and cold do, but your chaos does not, and I'm forever grateful for that because, again, Path 1, there are so many sources of chaos damage at this point that when you make it to maps, you have to be capped. You have to be capped on all your resistances, and usually if you can have any kind of positive chaos resistance, it's basically a win. It's almost mandatory. It's not completely mandatory, but it is almost mandatory to do that in Path 1, and I was never a fan of that. I didn't like that chaos res was something that also like got tanked, and it's like such a mandatory stat that you had to build into. So I'm really glad that they decided to not remove your chaos resistances as you go on. I'm still sure it's incredibly worth building into. It's incredibly worth getting some items with it if you can. I just have not really found many items that have chaos res on them, so I've mostly ignored it. And I mean, of course, I still have upgrades to make. So if I find some chaos resistance, awesome. If I don't, oh well. And with that though, oh, monster distinction, yeah. The monsters act very distinctly. And I like that all of them are sort of to be fought and to be thought about in a different way. Like, it really kind of engages me a lot more with the combat. Like, every monster works in a different way, and I like it. Like, these guys are going to rush me down. Those guys back there are going to be trying to charge at me as well. But these guys kind of rush in a lot more, and they're swinging their swords at me. Meanwhile, like, the creepy crawlers are coming up to set up some stuff. These guys are going to be throwing some things at me, and this guy's going to be doing like some like dagger stuff versus these guys back here casting lightning spells and everything at me. So there's a lot more, like, I've already recognized a lot of the, you got this classic zombie waddling up to me. Like, I've really had to sit down and learn what a lot of the monsters are going to do and kind of how I should be reacting against them, which is something that I like. I thoroughly enjoy that kind of need to figure out what monsters are doing. Also, sorry, I'm getting warm. I'm taking this off. That need to figure out what monsters are doing and to react accordingly based on the situation that I'm presented with. It makes combat a lot more engaging. It makes it kind of a lot more flowy as well once you kind of go, okay, that guy's gonna be casting spells. These guys are charging me. I'm gonna try to set up like this. I'm gonna try to make my way back there. Maybe that guy's resurrecting stuff. We're going to make our way back there and do that. Oh, I just thought of something that needs to be added to this. Rare modifiers. I'll go over some of these. These two I'm going to combine into the same one. And I've already talked a little bit about character progression, so we're going to kind of rush through the rest of the good things. Again, this is not a full list of the good things. These are just things that immediately came to my mind as I was playing and as I've kind of been throwing this random list together. Character dialogue and the story. The story feels like it's way more put together. I actually could tell you what's happening in the first 3 acts of the story. How dare you, sir? I actually could tell you what's happening within the first 3 acts of the story. Everywhere feels very distinct, very different, and I really thoroughly have been enjoying the story that they've built up so far. I've been glad to see that they've actually been taken a good direction into the... Feels like they've taken a good direction into the more forthcoming, right? Like a very like in-your-face story. Whereas PoE 1 was like, there was some stuff happening in your face, but for the most part, it was a lot of just like background information, a lot of stuff that you kind of had to gather or like read about on the side, and you weren't necessarily getting the full story unless you really tried to take your time through and did like a lore run almost. So I've been glad that the story's a lot more in the forefront. It's right there. And character dialogue is something that I always harped on Diablo 4 for, especially when the new class, the Spiritborn, came out. But it's something that they've done an amazing job with. It's a very minor detail, but I'm glad that they've done it. And that's just that characters have a lot of different lines. Like, even you've seen it even from my character here. Like, if whenever I go to respec, he basically just says like, can't always get it right, like, or just something. You know, reloading when I'm reloading stuff. Lather up is like my oil grenade. That's like what he's saying when he does that. So there's a lot of different lines for different situations and different skills that your character uses, and I honestly really like that. I've thought that that's a very minor detail, but it's something that I'm extremely happy that they've done. And it's the same in the story. All of the characters interact with the situations differently. They interact with the NPCs differently. They have different lines, different dialogue set aside for each of these separate NPCs. And that's something that I actually really thoroughly enjoy. And I am glad that they have it in the game. Again, it's a minor thing, but I love that it's there. It's something, again, in Diablo 4 that they did not do. The Spiritborn, when you go into the new area, when you go into Nahantu in the expansion, that's where the Spiritborn is supposed to be from. And that character never said anything about being from Nahantu, never said anything different about it, just acted confused about being in Nahantu the entire time, and just didn't seem like they knew anything was going on. The NPCs actually give your character more dialogue as a Spiritborn than your own character does. And that was something that I always thought was annoying. But like, the mercenary, the warrior, the Sork are the main three that I've played so far, and they all have different dialogues. They all have different things going on. They have different emotions, different feelings as they're going through the story, and I like it. It makes the characters more like believable as far as like characters go. Like when you go to Act 2 and if you go to the top of the moving city, the first time that you go there, when you go to the top of the caravan and you look out and you see there are slaves pulling the city. Every character has a different dialogue line for it. Like the mercenary here, I think he says something along the lines of like, they're using slaves. See, I knew there was no good side, just a bunch of assholes everywhere. So it's like, it's really cool to see that all of these characters have their own different dialogues for different situations. And that's something that I can't say enough good things about. It's a very small thing, but it feels super important the longer it goes on. And so it's just another good win. And like I said, the story also very good. Character progression, as I was saying kind of at the start, does feel good. I think there are some areas of improvement. Like, I feel like it's so hard if I wanted to really travel over to, look, from Mercenary, if I wanted to travel over to this side of the tree and get some generic, like, elemental or some generic fire stuff or something going over here, it feels a lot more difficult. It feels like it takes a lot longer. I could just be wrong because I'm not used to it. But in Path 1, it feels like I could move from this side of the tree to this side of the tree very quickly, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But in this game, it just feels like much more of like a slog to get over there, and I am almost kind of worried for builds that I like doing, which are very just like wacky, out of the ordinary sort of builds. And I'm very concerned about if it's going to feel reasonable to go from, say, this part, the bottom of the tree, and make my way up towards like the top of the tree to get access to more spell stuff, more minion focused stuff, some other just like more crucial elemental stuff, or if I'm kind of going to be stuck more to my own area. As you can see, I really haven't branched that far. I went over to at most the ranger area over here, and this is all still very much so my own area, so I really just haven't been able to branch out very far. But again, I really don't have a lot of experience with this tree, so I think that's something that will come with more experience, more time with the tree. It's something I have a small concern about, but as it is right now, character progression feels really good. As far as just like getting to the big nodes. When you get to the big nodes, there's kind of a noticeable power increase for your character. And if you find, an item or two that's been holding you back, if you find a better weapon as any kind of character, you find like plus spell levels as a spell wielder, it all feels a lot more impactful. Like, as soon as you find that, you're like, man, that is a noticeable increase to my character. Yeah, with that though, that's kind of everything good that I had. Again, not a full list, but that's everything I had. With that, we're gonna, if you want to, here's your look at the good list, and we're getting rid of it. It's out of here. And I'm also gonna erase this guy because we went through that, and I will also erase this guy because that should do something. All right, with that though, we're gonna roll into the bad side of things. I know this is, I got a lot to talk about. I didn't realize how long this video was gonna take. Anyway, bad though. Starting off with the bad, Ascension. The early ascendancies, they feel rough. They are very, very difficult for how important an early ascendancy is and what kind of power that should give your character and the kind of identity that it should give your character early on in the game. I know that you can infinitely retry the first and second labs. You can infinitely retry those, and so it's not all that bad, but it still does not feel great. I'm not a fan of how they feel. There should be some adjustments. This character, I think, was able to do Trial of the Sekimas. I think he was able to do it first try. It was a slog because I did not have very good gear at the time I was doing it. So it was a slog, but I think I did it first or second try. And my warrior and my stork, I was actually able to do it first try just because I knew more or less just, hey, just dodge going to any affliction. And then, and I thankfully kind of had a good enough gear set up by the time I got to that boss that I was able to just kind of take him down and get my first ascendancy. But I know a lot of players have been having a ton of difficulty. If you're maybe not as experienced, especially with Sanctum, or you're not as experienced in like the game or with ARPGs, it will be a very daunting task to go in there and complete that. And there's a few points of there's a few points where I could think of improvements, especially for Trial of Sekimas and also for Ultimatum. Ultimatum just feels like it needs to just not have like the Trial of Chaos, the Ultimatum thing. It feels like there should just be like the difficulty on the modifiers should just scale back by a ton or something. Like there is something to be done in Chaos. I feel like the Trial of Chaos actually needs more work than the Trial of Sekimas does. The primary thing I can think of with the Trial of Sekimas, though, is that it's annoying that when you finish a room, the monsters don't despawn or anything. So I could find the exit, theoretically. Like, say I could go into one of the rooms. Sorry, I don't have any, like, footage or anything. Like I said, I'm not an editor. But you could run through this whole area. You could run through the whole map. You could find the exit, run into the exit, but monsters can still trail in behind you and still hit you while you're in your like safe area. Like you've completed the room. I feel like monsters should either despawn or like there is in path 1. When you find the exit, when you get to the end of the room, there is a staircase that leads down to a separate area so that you can't be hit while you're down in that second area. And then if you want to go back up, and you want to go back up the stairs because you're like, oh, I'm a little bit close to getting some sacred water. I'll go try to kill some more monsters, open up another chest, then you could go back and do that and try to just get some. But otherwise, I don't like that there is no like barrier or anything preventing monsters from coming in and smacking you while you're in your safe area. That should be a safe zone. You've finished the room is done. Why do monsters keep chasing you? That's one area. And the other thing is, I think at least for maybe the first couple of like if you do Trial of Sekima's tier 1 and 2s because you don't want to deal with Trial of Chaos, there should be a thing where it's just your honor does not apply to those first boss fights. Maybe after maybe on like the third ascendancy, if you want to turn honor back on in the boss fights, fine. You should be more of a character. You should be kind of a bit more prepared for that kind of thing. But early on, I don't like that that your honor still affects you, especially with how many AoEs and everything that those bosses do and how kind of small and everything those arenas can be. I would like to see that the honor system maybe just doesn't come into play during that, or some other kind of adjustment should be made, I think, to those bosses, in my opinion. And like I said, Trial of Chaos, I don't really have anything for it. I don't know what a good solution is other than like those modifiers that they give are far too insane, and those should probably be looked at, or something should be changed there. I genuinely don't know what you do to Trial of Chaos. Trial of Chaos felt so rough. I think I had to do it 3 or 4 times before I finally was able to do it. And it wasn't even because of the boss. I actually went in and completely shredded whatever boss it was. My god, the boss was no problem by that point. It was surviving until I could get to the boss because just the other modifiers were so bad. It was like, if you got offered just a set of mods that you're like, wow, there's nothing here that even looks remotely survivable, then you were just screwed. You might as well just restart. And that does not feel good. So I hope that they figure out something with Trial of Chaos. I hope they figure out something with Ascendancies in general, because as they stand right now, they do not feel great. And they're such an important piece. But as you can see, I'm level 71, and I still don't have my 3rd Ascendancy. I have 2. I have done 2 Ascendancies, and I've seen one thing to do the 3rd Ascendancy, but I don't want to go do it because I'm just worried I'm going to waste my time essentially by going in there and dying or losing all of my honor, and then I'm like, well, I just spent an hour in here and I got completely nothing out of it. So I don't even have I have not even attempted 3rd Ascendancy yet. Probably will once I get some more things, but it's something I really hope that they adjust, and I hope it's on their radar as something to change. With that though, early game melee as well. options are far too limited, and certain skills very conditional. So my warrior, and actually, you know what? I can actually show you. Let's go to my warrior really quick. So you see, level 32 Titan. I just ascended a little while ago. I'm on the final boss here in the Dreadnought. And let me tell you right now, as somebody, I have actually invested resources into, I really wanted to use, where is it? Where to put it? Volcanic Fisher. I really wanted to use Volcanic Fisher on this character. I wanted to be a slammy boy who does Volcanic Fisher things. I even put a Jeweler's Orb on this so I could actually have 3 sockets in here, and this skill just doesn't feel like it does any damage. And it's because it technically doesn't, because really what it's supposed to do is put down this like Fisher, which then you use other slams to then be able to actually continuously deal damage with Volcanic Fisher, because they last for 12 seconds, so they last for quite a while. But it just takes, but it's just like, it's a whole setup thing, and it still just doesn't feel like it does any damage right now. The only skill that I've been running around with is Perfect Strike, and Perfect Strike feels actually feels great from a like damage perspective. If you're a early game warrior, use Perfect Strike. Honestly, use it. Like, you have to get used to the timing, but once you get used to it, Perfect Strike, honestly, very strong skill. And there is also another thing I want to say as far as the conditional side. There's something that's a little bit frustrating, is that as a Titan, I decided, I was like, you know what, I want to take the your hits are crushing blows instead of the aftershock thing. And it was very specifically because of the fact that I have this node right here to already give me a chance for aftershock. So I just went, I'm going to try to go crushing blows and more damage against heavy stunned enemies. And you know what that did? It took one of my skills, which was Bone Shatter. I was using Bone Shatter a good bit to actually deal some decent damage on targets that were primed for stun. But this effectively just makes it so that Bone Shatter didn't do anything, because my auto attack, my Mace Strike, would just stun everything like that, and nothing was ever primed for stun, because it would be like swing once, and then on like the second swing they would just immediately go into being stunned. And so it kind of killed almost any ability to use Bone Shatter. I probably could still use it against like rares or anything like that, just to then just do some build up, or like uniques here, like the boss would probably be fine to use Bone Shatter against. But some of the like conditions for certain things just have ultimately kind of left Warrior feeling very flat, and like I just don't have a ton of options. So I've literally just for the most part, I literally just use like Infernal Cry and Perfect Strike, and then like Shockwave Totem as well to help build up stun in the background and deal some damage. And that's literally just been the entirety of my build. And I know a lot of other people have been experiencing kind of similar woes with Warrior, where they haven't been feeling incredibly crazy about Warrior. So, and I know that it does get better late game. Like, let me also preface this by saying, I know it's better in the late game. I know Warrior is actually really strong late game. I've seen some crazy strong, good Warrior builds in late game, which I'm happy to see. But the early game just feels overly weak. It just feels overly... It just feels like you just don't have enough options early. And it might just be maybe once all the skills come into the game and we have more options and more of the weapons are in, it might be that Warrior starts to feel a lot better. But as it stands right now in early access, early game Warrior is extremely rough. And I hope that that's something that they look towards adjusting. Map size. Oh my god. Map size. Some of the most egregious maps are in Act 3 especially. There are some in Act 2. But there are some aggressively big maps in Act 3. Also, I'm gonna go back to my Mercenary, because my Mercenary can show off more stuff. There are some aggressively big maps in this game, and I know that they're adding the checkpoint system, being able to teleport to checkpoints. That will actually be a huge boon, because you'll then be able to just kind of teleport around and do something. This is kind of spoilers, by the way, if you care about this. So I'm gonna kind of be going through just like some areas in Act 3 that are huge. So if you care, skip ahead a little bit. But let's see, the areas that I was losing my mind in. The bog here isn't great. Where is it? Oh, is it because I'm not in like the past? The Apex of Filth here. The Drowned City into the Apex of Filth might be one of the worst things I've ever seen. This city is enormous. This city is huge. And then you get to the Apex of Filth, and it's even bigger, it felt like. Like, there is just so much stuff everywhere. Like, as much as I love having big maps and I love running around and exploring stuff, some of these maps are egregiously too big, and they should absolutely have their size toned down at least a little bit. I think in endgame, maps so far have felt pretty fine with their size, but these early game, like leveling and Act 3 and stuff, are so big. They could be cut in half even, and they would still be huge. So it's just, I hope that they tone it down just a little bit, and I know that them adding the checkpoints will feel a lot better, like checkpoint teleporting, because then at least as you've explored areas, if you go off somewhere and you're like, damn, this wasn't it, this is a dead end, you can just teleport to a checkpoint that's probably closer than wherever you are, and then you can just kind of run over from there. So that'll feel at least better. But these maps are huge, man. Like, there are some aggressively large areas. The town Exile, I don't know if that I even have it on here, because it might be, I think just because of like the setting right now, it's not showing me Exile. But Exile is another place that is incredibly tough to make. Here he is. Here it is, Exile. Exile is another place that is just incredibly big, and I'm also not a fan of Exile. Exile itself, probably one of the hardest maps in the game to me, and I wasn't crazy about it. Also, ignore this. I did actually kill this lady. I don't know. It's just bugged. It's bugged, and she's still there. But anyway, that's all I have as far as map size goes. There should be more tutorials on mechanics on the game, especially on weapon skill points. I hope that this is something that they're going to address further out in early access, because I do like that skills actually show like what they do. Like if you get a skill gem and then I hover over this, it will tell me
Baluster is an emplacement that can tether enemies to the ground.
Yeah, so I like that it will tell you what the skill gems do and kind of give you like a quick video over what each thing does. So that I am glad for. But there are other tutorials, other mechanics that I think need to be addressed. And something else is, I'm really hoping, I'm going to kind of combine these two. Let's see. Where is it? More information on skills in the skill bar. Okay, I'm going to combine this and tutorials. I'm going to combine these two, because as it stands right now, there's not enough information here. I don't like that it literally just tells you like what my attack time is. I don't like that it just tells me what my reload and mana cost is. It should have like accuracy, skill damage, something else here more than just this information. A quick showcase on what the damage is of the number of the skill itself. There should be far more information here, like kind of like there is in Path 1. There should be more information on these skill bars, and I hope that this is something that's coming later. But there should be way more information here. Instead, I have to go into the skill tree, and I have to go open this, and then I have to try to find, like, what exactly am I looking for? Oh, here's my crit chance, here's my crit bonus, okay, like, oh, you know, here's my accuracy, here's where that is. You know, I don't like that there are, like, three areas that I have to go into first to be able to find relevant information towards my skill, and I hope that that's something that they're planning to add later. So, for now, as it stands, not huge on that. I hope that that gets changed, I hope that that gets updated. Yeah, and then just more tutorials in general. I would really like to see more tutorials built into the game. I genuinely did not realize what was happening with weapon sets. I thought that they had said that weapon sets, like, you get essentially additional passive points that go towards being a weapon set, rather than, no, you have your total pool, and then you essentially have these subsets of skills that you add via weapon skill points. And then you select like this one, and then you come in here and you do all this stuff. Like these points over here that are like slightly off color orange are specifically for a weapon set. And something else, this is something I hope that they'll do, is I would like to see, if I select weapon set 1, I would like to see everything that's on weapon set 1. And if I select weapon set 2, then these points go away because they are not part of weapon set 2. Then these points should just not show up and not be here. And it's kind of annoying that it works like this. So, and the only information you get is this. So I really hope that they kind of add some more tutorial here, add a little bit more of an option here to kind of tell you, hey, this goes towards your total passive points still, and this is how weapon set points work. Because it took me, honestly, a while to figure that out. I felt really dumb when I did think about it and figure it out. But it took me a while to figure out that that's how things or working in the game is that you specifically have to say that, and you use one of your spell points, or you use one of your passive points for that. Especially because when you go and kill bosses, like when you go and kill like Crowbell, I think Crowbell might be one of the first ones. When you go kill Crowbell, it says, you gain 2 passive points, you gain 2 weapon skill points. And I don't like that it says that you gain both if you essentially just gained one or the other. I know that your passive skill points apply to weapon skill points, but it should just overall either be its own separate system, or it should just say you got 2 passive skill points. Because when they break it up into 2 words, like into 2 sections like that, it makes me think like, okay, that gave me 2 for my character and 2 for my weaponry, but it didn't. So that is something I would really like them to actually kind of clarify a little bit more, maybe make a little bit more obvious in the game. That is just my biggest example there. Hitboxes on some bosses don't seem accurate. This is probably just an early access thing. But when I went and fought the boss in Act 2 with my warrior, who is it? It's the boss in the Valley of Titans. Oh man, I'm forgetting. That's Keth. That's Mastodon. Where's the other one? No, where is it? Ah, here we go. Valley of Titans. Titan Grotto. I can't remember the guy's name. Blah, blah, blah. Ah, Zalmarath here. Zalmarath the Colossus is a really big boss that stands kind of at the edge of a platform. And as a warrior, you have to run up and then just like smack him. But what I learned is that not everywhere has a hitbox. And that felt terrible because the only thing that really did consistently have a hitbox was his arm. And sometimes he would pull his arm back when he's doing like a beam attack or something, and effectively meant I could not hit anything that was on him, and that felt awful. So I hope that they're planning to add more hitboxes to him to like make it his whole body. I'm pretty sure that's why this character also kind of struggled, is because my grenades were effectively not hitting like his chest or anything. They were just hitting his arm, and it made the DPS feel really awkward and inconsistent. So that's one that I'm just calling as like bad, but it's something that I'm hoping is just an early access kind of like bug type deal, and I hope that they will add some more hitboxes there. But it felt bad. It just felt like I was whiffing every attack, and I was like, I'm not doing any damage to this guy. What's happening? And then I had to realize that it was his arms that I was actually hitting and not anything else, and it just made that fight take forever. With that, lackluster options in the spirit gem department. Oh yeah, and then quality does do really weird things, and I don't understand some of this. So as it stands right now, at least especially in what is specifically offered to Mercenary, Herald of Ash, Herald of Thunder, the banners I still don't really like. I can understand if you want to use it. If you want to use a banner, fine. I have Defiance banner up just for the sake of every now and again I stick it down. If there's a bunch of enemies that are nearby and I'm trying to set up my grenades, then I'll stick it down. I still don't like banners. I think that they're honestly very poorly made, especially with how many monsters shove you. There are so many monsters that shove you, or that like cause you to roll out of wherever you are because they're doing a big attack or something, and that immediately just shuts off all of the benefit that you get from it, and that just shuts off all the benefit, because as soon as you roll out, you lose the banner completely. The banner disappears. You don't gain any valor back or anything. So banner skills, I think, are awful, and I really hope that they plan to adjust them or do something with them, because as it stands right now, I hate banner skills. I don't think that they're good. But very lackluster options overall. Like, there just isn't anything crazy. Like, Shard Scavenger relies on you consuming some kind of ailment from your target and then just lets you reload your crossbow. And there just isn't enough support here, I feel like. And I mean, I know we're missing a ton of gems, we're missing a ton of stuff, so it's possible in the future this will start to feel better. But as it stands right now, it just feels like there really aren't that many good spirit options that are here. And maybe that's just a mercenary thing too, but it just doesn't feel like there are a bunch of great options. And then also, yeah, quality does really weird things. Like, let me show you. Where's Defiance Banner? Defiance Banner. This skill gem that's revolved around the aura gives you 8% more armor and evasion, and gives you some increased movement speed. So it's this skill that gives you armor and evasion, but then if you look at what the quality does, because I'm a gemling, I gain quality from gems. I gain quality on skill gems. Empowered spells gained 0 to 10% of damage as lightning damage. Why? Why is that what Defiance Banner does. That doesn't make any sense. I feel like this is just like, this is supposed to be somewhere else. Like, I feel like this is supposed to be somewhere else. I don't know, but quality on Defiance Banner makes absolutely no sense, and that seems to be the case, like, with a couple Spirit Gems, is just, it does something where I'm just like, why is that what it does? So that's something that is just completely weird, and I hope that that's just, like, they put that on there, and that's not actually where it's supposed to go, so hopefully that's just a mistake within EA, but if not, I'd love to know what the thought process is there, because that is just an extremely weird, that is just an extremely weird quality to have on Defiance Banner of all things. Anyway, I will move on. Endgame systems feel underwhelming. Yes, some of them do. I have not tried all of them yet. I cannot speak to Delirium. I have not done Delirium, but I've done a couple of breaches. The map bosses actually feel pretty good. I will give them that. Expedition actually also is something that I do think feels good. Ritual's too difficult for me, honestly. I kind of get swarmed a bit too much, and I can't really do much about it in my current setup. I need more attack speed and a few other fixes. Once I do, Ritual still puts itself, I found, in a lot of just tight corners and a lot of tight corridors. And at that point, I'm just like, well, if I click that, I'm probably just dead, because everything's going to spawn in, like, one concerted area, and then they're just going to immediately leap on me and kill me. And that's usually what happens, is I'll try it anyway, just for the hell of it. I'll usually finish the map and come back and try it. And that's typically what happens, is I just get swarmed and killed by everything in the Ritual. So that's kind of something that is just annoying, but that's Ritual in a nutshell anyway. It spawns in very weird areas sometimes, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So Delirium I can't speak to. I don't know if it's good. I hope it's good, but I genuinely don't know. Like I said, map bosses actually feel pretty good right now. With the increases that they did to drops and everything, and the drop fixes, map bosses actually feel kind of worth pursuing and going after, because not every map has a map boss. And then Breach, though. Breach feels terrible. I've done a couple breaches. You get swarmed with enemies, of course. That's Breach in a nutshell, which is fine. But the breaches just don't... Oh yeah, that reminds me. Does this have... Okay, so this does at least have some stuff there. But the breaches just don't drop anything. Much like they do in, like, Path of Exile 1. You get, like, 2 splinters out of it, and that's it. And I know that, like, splinters and breach stones are supposed to be the turbo endgame for breach in general. And so I wasn't expecting to really find any of them. But I killed everything, and it's like I got 2 rares. You know, I killed a bunch of stuff, and, like, I opened a breach hand or 2, and it's like I got 2... Actually, not even rares. I got magic items. Sorry. It's like I got a couple of blue items out of it. And so it just felt really, really underwhelming. It might feel better now, because I don't think I've done it since the improvements to loot that they made. It's possible this feels better, but as it stands right now, Breach once again feels incredibly underwhelming. And I was immediately just like, I'm going to avoid this at all costs, because there's no point right now. So hopefully that's just something that was more of a me issue. Good old skill issue, potentially. We'll see. But that is something that I have an issue with. So anyway, that's kind of all the bads that I have listed. Again, that's not a full list of all the bads. It's just the ones I can immediately think of. Yeah. With that... And this really is going to be an hour-long yapping video. This is a yapathon.
Yes.
So with that, we'll go into the things that I feel like need some adjusting. First of all, cost of respecking goes up by a lot. So I'm level 71, and it's not like I don't have that much gold, honestly. Like, I probably should start selling items and doing some other things, but so I have 63k gold. It costs 4.2 thousand to respec anything. So if there's any, like, oh, I really want to make a big change, I want to make a big move, it just costs so much. Like, if I was like, you know what, I don't want to be grenade build anymore, I want to respec out all of the grenade stuff, and I want to put it into crossbow stuff instead. I probably don't have enough gold for it, and it would take me forever to actually farm up enough to do so. Also, the cost of it seemingly increased, potentially with character level. So it's like this thing where it's like, I'll just have to be selling items for a long time to kind of really build up this price point where I can start refunding things again. And that's... I'm not crazy about it. I would like to see the cost of that go down at least some. Like, I understand that they want to have a gold cost, they don't want it to be completely free, and that's fine, but I would like there to be at least less of a multiplier on respecking. Maybe they just make it so that it costs a lot, starts to cost more as you respec more points. Just because, like, if I want to make just like a 1 or 2 point adjustment, you know, like if I just want to spec out I want to take you know, this wheel instead of this side of the wheel, which I know these do the same thing. I'm just using this as an example. But say like I'm like, oh, you know what? This is probably a better bonus than this small node here. Let me unspec this. I don't want to spend 8,000 gold to literally move 2 points. So it would be good if there was maybe just something where it's like the more points that you unspec, the higher the cost goes, and it still also hits like a cap where it's like it won't go beyond X amount. That feels like something that like if it started at maybe 500 gold and scaled to 4,200 gold or something, that would be fine. I would like that a lot more. Respecking sure can have a cost. Respecking sure should have a cost, but it should not be as aggressively priced, I think, as it is right now. Especially in the early games when like you're a beginning character, it can feel really difficult if you feel like you've made a poor choice and you want to go back and respec, but you don't have the gold for it, and it's really hard to get caught back up to that. So with that, we'll move on though. Quality on wands and staves. I think this is just something that isn't in the game right now. But currently, Arcanist Etchers, whose quality of wand, staff, or Scepter, currently does nothing on wands or staves, or at least it seemingly does nothing. I've seen my buddy is a pure sorcerer spellcaster person right now, and has mentioned that he threw quality onto his staff and it didn't do anything. It didn't buff the base like crossbow shot for here, for example. It didn't buff the like base spell that you get off of the staff. It didn't do anything. So that's something that I'm hoping is just not in early access, kind of like the same with the runes. I hope that stuff is just not in early access and it will be added later. But it feels lame right now that quality doesn't do anything, and you can't put any runes on your weapons early. That just kind of, I don't know, that just kind of irks me in a certain way, and I would like to see that adjusted hopefully soon. Or yeah, oh that's right, I already talked about this. Let me erase this, I forgot. More information visible. Oh yeah, I would like to see just a vendor to purchase uncut skill gems, especially when you're in your hideout. And just make them low level. Just make it like level 5 or something. Like, you know, even maybe as your character finishes certain acts, you can start being able to buy like level 13 gems, because I believe that's when you can start. Yeah, it's when you can buy everything down here. So it's like maybe as your character completes certain things or hits certain level, there should be a person in the skill gem or in the hideout or in the town that can sell you gems. Because this is the only way to actually see skills. And this is the only way to be able to test. And I don't think that, I don't like that you always have to wait to find a skill gem on the ground to then be able to go like, okay, now I can test X, Y, and Z. Like, there should just be just make it level 13 or something. Just, make it low level when you start. Let it scale up. Make 13 be the max, because then you have to actually spend resources to level it further if you want to. But I do feel like there should be some kind of skill gem vendor available so that you can actually buy and try more skill gems rather than essentially having to hold on and hoard all of the skill gems like I am. And thankfully I have a gem tab, because otherwise I would just be hoarding these all in like a quad, and that would be really annoying. So I do hope that they do something with that. That would be something I would like to see. And let's see, option to toggle skill lock on. This is something mostly specifically for mercenary and for anybody that has kind of a rapid fire skill. Let's see, what can I grab? I'll just grab a level 12, whatever. This is just as an example, so I'll grab rapid shot here. I can just get rid of that. We'll just put it there. So this skill, anyway, that skill, it's pretty cool. Right, you just kind of fire shots like that. Let me see if I can actually showcase it in a map here. But it will lock on to specific skills, and it would lock on to specific targets. And I do hope that they plan to change this, or like make it so that you can turn this option off. But it will lock on like him, and then I'm like, okay, I want to go over there, and it's gonna lock on to that guy, and I'm trying to like spread the shots out, and I'm trying to do something else with it, and it becomes this really awkward game of trying to like move my pointer away from the target. And I will say, I think rapid shot hasn't felt the worst when it comes to that. There is another one, it's like, I think it's armor piercing shots. That might be the other one. That might be the first one that you get. It might be armor piercing rounds. That one feels far more aggressive on it just locking you into a specific target and you can't do anything about it. And that was just something. It's a very minor gripe. It might only apply to mercenary, but it's something that's kind of annoying. Is that you'll get locked onto a specific target, and I'm like, spread the armor, like spread the armor break. Like this guy's already broken his armor. Like spread it to something else so I can load more bolts. And that was something that early on I found was kind of annoying. Unique items. This is something I really hope that we just haven't seen a lot, and I hope that some of these scale up. But any of the uniques that I have seen, incredibly underwhelming. I have some. Bloodthorn's, I mean, a very classic. This is from PoE 1. I'm actually not too mad about this because this is from PoE 1. It's an early game, just quarterstaff. It just has some damage on it. It has some bleed. This is something from Path 1. I'm not very mad about this being here. It's an early game unique. But like this crossbow, I would expect to be able to use this crossbow late game or something. But it feels awkward, and I wouldn't use it. I would never use this in late game. These shields right here are again just like super low level, and they said we wanted to make sure that these items felt good early game, but also could still feel like something you could use late game. I've seen quite a number of uniques. This is maybe the best one that I've seen, but I've seen quite a number of uniques, and any of them I just never felt like I was going to want to use these in any kind of end game capacity. And maybe that's not the case for all uniques, but as of right now, as of any uniques I have seen, like this one right here is also going to showcase that. This thing's also going to showcase it, where it's just like it adds some thorns damage, it gives you a chance to bleed, but overall, I'm not going to use this in endgame probably. I can almost certainly find physical thorns damage on a different chest to a much higher magnitude. Chance to bleed, I can just get on the tree and get on a weapon and get elsewhere. But it's just this really annoying thing of or very like disappointing thing, I suppose I will say, as far as those items go. And I hope that they're just not all there, and that we maybe see some buffs on some unique items. But as it stands right now, they're very whatever. And I haven't felt anything. I actually am a little bit. I'm very much so just like about seeing a unique item more than I am about seeing a rare item. If I see a rare item, I'm like, sweet, that could be something. But if I see a unique item, I'm like, this is almost certainly going to be bad. Charm slots on belts. This is something they said. They said, you'll eventually unlock more charm slots. It feels strange to me, as far as I know from what I heard. It's a modifier on belts, and I'm not crazy about that. I feel like that's an odd decision because you come from Path 1, right? Where you have 5 flasks, and I know in that is much different. You have utility flasks, but we only have life and mana flasks, and then you're supposed to have these charm slots as kind of your actual way to solve certain things, a way to solve certain situations. But like I still have never seen a belt with more than one charm slot, and I've looked at a bunch of streamers and stuff. I don't think I've seen anybody else also have more than one charm slot. And that just says it's either a super rare mod, or that there should just be bases that actually unlock, like as you go later into the game, that just unlock into second and third charm slots. Because while I understand that these are powerful effects, just being able to be immune to poison, or being able to be immune to freeze and all that kind of stuff, and like some rarity and some other stuff, like charms are very good, but it feels like that mod is just too rare or something, or maybe I'm just really unlucky and I just haven't seen it. But I would love to at least have a second slot so I can spec towards something else, because as it stands right now, I almost want to just keep freeze here. I want to keep the ability to be immune to freeze here, because being frozen is one of the worst things that can happen. But I'd love it if I could put in some immunity to bleeding, or an immunity to like a slow or something. Like, it would be nice if it felt like I had other options. But as it stands right now, I almost feel locked into getting frozen, to avoiding being frozen, because I see quite a few enemies that'll have cold, or that'll have some kind of freeze buildup, and your boy doesn't want to get frozen, because then I'll be dead, and that's very unfortunate. And then lastly, rare modifiers. Again, something I would like to see some adjustment on. I can't show a case in the map because I've actually finished that map and there aren't any more rare monsters in there. But the biggest, most aggressive ones I can think of is the ones that I think it's like proximital tangibility, which I'm not crazy about. It requires you to, the only way that you can even damage the monster is if you're in close with them. You have to be like in their face, and I don't like that. I really hate the forcing somebody to be close, especially if your whole build is around being long range. And I understand that it's supposed to be like you have to be risky and you have to go in there and fight them close range, but I just don't like that design. I don't feel like that's a good design as far as rare mods go, and it can even show up on blues too, which I think is can be even worse in a lot of cases. Revives minions, constantly revives minions, is something that I think there just needs to be a higher cooldown on that. That's a modifier that if the rare is still alive, if you kill any of their minions, they'll respawn. But it doesn't seem like there's any cooldown on that. There's been a number of times where I don't see the rare yet, but I have the monsters, the minions swarming me, and I kill them, and literally half a second later, they're back up and they're attacking me again. And that feels terrible. I don't like just like that. It feels like I can't get away from these guys, even though I just killed them. They are immediately back on their feet and back at me. And that's something that to me is just really terrible. Even if they had some kind of like animation of getting back up, of animation of like something, like some kind of way to slow down that process, because otherwise it's just like I get swarmed by enemies, I kill them, and they're right back to swarming me, and then I have to run around and try to find this rare, and sometimes I can't find them for a while. I've definitely died because I just could not find a rare that was, I guess, doing the smartest thing and hiding from me. But I couldn't find a rare, and these monsters were just chasing me, and eventually just killed me. Because I couldn't kill them because they would just respawn instantly. So revives minions is something I would like to see some adjustment on. And Molten Shell, Molten Barrier. This might just be something that I'm coping on. This could be something that is just bad because I'm playing a fire. I've played just a lot of fire characters. But Magma Barrier, Molten Barrier, Magma Barrier, whatever it is. It feels like it makes monsters like impossibly tanky, and I really don't know if it's just they get a lot of fire resistance or what the deal is, but it feels like Arch Nemesis, if there's any PoE 1 vets, it feels like Arch Nemesis Molten Barrier from like when they first introduced it, where those monsters gained like a ton of fire res, they gained like max fire res and like Fizz taken as fire. I think like they got like a ton of bonuses, and I think they did like fire, like extra damage as fire damage or something. Like they got a ton of bonuses for being a Molten Barrier. And ultimately, GGG went, oh, people don't really like that. We don't really like that. We're going to remove a lot of those hidden bonuses from it. But it feels like they put them back into the game here. Again, maybe I'm just coping. Maybe I don't really fully recognize how that modifier works. But it feels like they re-added those modifier additions. And that just has felt... That feels really bad in some situations. Especially, again, early game warrior, I was fighting against a Molten Barrier guy, and he just felt impossible. I eventually just ran off from him. I eventually just tried to get him stuck on something and then left because it just did not do anything. I just couldn't do any damage to him. Like once the Molten Barrier pops, then I was able to actually hit him for some damage, but usually by that point as well, he would be stunned, and then sometimes he got stunned and moved so far back that when he got back up, the Molten Barrier was back too. So there are definitely some very frustrating rare mods that exist in the game. I hope that they're looking to tune those down as well. They do need some adjustment, in my opinion. I'm sure there's a couple others that I just can't really think of right now, but those are kind of the ones that pop in my head at the moment, just because they're the ones that, like, as soon as I see them, I'm immediately annoyed, versus pretty much anything else out there. With that, though, that is actually the end of my list. Let's go! Whew, all right, I have been yapping for quite some time. I actually didn't expect this video to take that long, but I guess I had a lot to say. So with that though, I want to leave a tilder here, tilder outro type deal here. I still would like to say again, I love Path of Exile 2 so far. I think this game is fantastic. It is extremely difficult, so be prepared for that if you're a new player. But it is extremely difficult, and there's a lot to learn. There is a steep learning curve, but it feels so satisfying when you do get a character down, when you do have something that can just push through some content or that can just be shredding out some damage. It feels very, very satisfying in a lot of regards. And again, I feel like that's the reason why I even yapped this long in general, right? Is I wouldn't have yapped this long if I didn't still believe that there is a game here that they can continue to grow and improve on. If there wasn't, like, I would make a video about this if it felt like this game was hopeless or like I wasn't actually having fun with it or something. there's still something here. There's still more than enough to go on, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to play Path of Exile as it moves through early access. Again, I'll say it again and again. We're still in early access. There's a ton that GGG is looking at. There's a ton that they're trying to work to improving. They've so far been very communicative with us. I hope that continues. I hope they continue to be communicative with us. But they've been very communicative with their thoughts. They've been really trying to, anything that flies too far out of line, they're really trying to make sure that they have these things kind of toned down to a better area. And hopefully they continue to look at feedback and continue to say, okay, these areas people are not having as much fun. Let's tone some things down. But with that though, I hope you guys are having fun with Path of Exile 2 still in the meantime. Like I said, you're almost always just like another couple levels away. You're almost just like a couple gear points away, a couple gear slots away. You're like a couple points on your tree away from just feeling like you have a character that can really shred out there. So I hope you're having fun. I hope you're having a good time killing some monsters. I will continue to be doing whatever for this game, guides, what have you, thoughts as more stuff comes out, and whatever other additions they continue to do. Because I'm just having a lot of fun with this game, and I still do thoroughly love it, and I'm excited to see the direction that it goes in. So with that though, YouTube, hope you're having a good one. Enjoy the rest of your Path of Exile EA, and if you have any other thoughts or anything, let me know below, because I would like to hear I'd like to hear some more of what the community's thinking. But yeah, with that, bye now.